Hello everyone, welcome to Poultry Vaccinology. My name is Dr. Jonathen Arul, a poultry veterinarian with Zoetis Sub-Saharan Africa. And today we're going to talk through the basics of poultry vaccines. We're going to cover vaccine types, the administration differences, and very importantly, decision-making regarding vaccines. Let's start. There are 5 broad categories of vaccine: live, killed or inactivated, subunit, recombinant or vectored, and lastly, immunocomplex. All these vaccines are unique and important for you to think about when in the field and in your decision-making process. Let's start with some words and definitions. It's important these are used in the right context. Attenuated. This means changing or weakening a live pathogen, and this generally refers to live or vectored vaccines. Inactivated. This is a killing of a pathogen, so it cannot replicate. We use inactivated because technically viruses aren't alive to begin with. And lastly, recombinant. This refers to a vectored vaccine, where DNA or RNA from one pathogen is inserted onto another. Some notes on live vaccines. They are actually alive, and in order for them to be effective, they need to be able to replicate. Again, alive to be effective. These vaccines are generally stored at 2 to 8 degrees, essentially in the fridge. They are fragile and sensitive, particularly to light. They do produce a fast immune response, but often this response tends to be low or moderate. Finally, these are extremely useful vaccines as they can be administered in mass application and are extremely cost-effective. Some notes on killed or inactivated vaccines. They are in fact dead, so to speak, and cannot replicate. They do require an adjuvant to create a reaction, and an appropriate amount of antigen or pathogen must be there in order to induce a response. This response tends to be slower, but the response is often higher. Lastly, these vaccines are moderately priced. A large part of this price includes the manual labor involved in the actual administration process. Some notes on vectored vaccine. Again, these are actually alive and need to be alive to be able to replicate. Remember, alive to replicate to be effective. What's special about these vaccines, though, are that they are stored in liquid nitrogen and are extremely fragile and sensitive. Similarly to killed vaccines, they do produce a slowish response, and they do produce a low and moderate response, but a long duration of response. They can be a bit more expensive due to logistical difficulties. And lastly, they can be a little bit difficult to measure, but this varies from vaccine to vaccine. A few words about how these vaccines are administered. On the left-hand column, we've got 5 different vaccine types. And on the top-hand row, we've got 5 different modes of vaccine administration. As you'll see, live vaccines can be administered via drinking water, spray, eye drop, wing web, or intramuscular subcutaneous injection. Whereas killed or recombinant vaccines, immunocomplex or subunit, all are administered via intramuscular or subcutaneous injection. There are outliers to this table, but they all generally follow this trend. Lastly, a few notes on your decision-making process, and try to use the same approach to working up every case. We work specifically on ruling out or narrowing down. Ruling out, what is it not, or what is it less likely to be? Narrowing down, what is it, or what does it look like, or what is it similar to? And lastly, ask yourself, what can I ask, what can I look at, and what can I test? Thank you for attention during this training.